Judge Stevens, hi! Fletcher Reed, I'm scheduled to be in your court in half an hour.
Every time I watch the show, it kind of drives me a little crazy.
They called him the genius, the wild card, the man who could make the whole world laugh through chaos.
I hate that. Oh, Christ. Oh, I slipped on my arm.
And her? She was just the wife. For years, Lauren Holly was seen as the woman Jim Carrey left his first marriage for. The one who got branded was the other woman before she even had a chance to speak. When their romance went public, the backlash was brutal. Whispers that she broke up a home, that she'd never last, that karma would catch up. And when the relationship did come crashing down right at its peak, the world wasted no time saying she got a taste of her own medicine. But now, at 61, Lauren is breaking her silence. And according to her, the truth behind her divorce from Jim Carrey is far more complicated and nothing like the story the world has been telling all these years. So what did Lauren Holly reveal? Join us as we get into all the juicy details. Jim Carrey's tumultuous childhood. Jim Carrey is perhaps the most successful of the Canadian comic actors who have crossed the border into Hollywood and truly made it. He didn't just make people laugh, he left a permanent mark on American film comedy with a style no one could replicate. His body could move like a cartoon, and his face could stretch into shapes that made even the most serious person crack up. Sure, his expressions were outrageous and sometimes even ridiculous, but they stuck with you. But long before the world knew him as the wild-eyed genius from Ace Ventura or The Mask, before the high-profile romances, divorces, and the headlines, Jim Carrey was just a kid from Canada, trying to survive one rough day at a time. Jim was born in Newmarket, Ontario, to Kathleen, a homemaker with Irish and Scottish roots, and Percy Carrey, a part-time musician and full-time accountant with French-Canadian heritage. Their last name had once been Carrey before it was anglicized. Jim was the youngest of 4 kids. John, Patricia, and Rita came before him. They were a Catholic family, the kind where church on Sundays wasn't optional and dinner around the table was sacred. By the time he was 8, Jim had already figured out he could control a room just by contorting his face in front of a mirror. That mirror became his stage. At 10, he was so sure of his talent that he wrote to Carol Burnett herself, declaring he was already a master of impressions and should be considered for a spot on the Carol Burnett Show. When a form letter came back in response, he was ecstatic. For him, it wasn't just mail, it was validation. That spark of belief never left. As a kid, Jim fell hard for British comedy. Monty Python's Flying Circus was like fuel to his creative fire. Years later, he remembered how much impact one sketch had on him. The one where Ernest Scribbler, played by Michael Palin, laughs himself to death over a joke. Jim told Monty Python's best bits, mostly, that watching Palin's performance lit something up inside him. It wasn't lost on critics either. Radio Times described Palin's work as uncannily Carrey-esque, a nod to the chaotic brilliance that both men shared. But behind all the laughter and mimicry, life at home was far from easy. Jim's early years were spent in Scarborough, Ontario, part of metropolitan Toronto, where he attended Blessed Trinity Catholic Elementary School. Later, the family moved to Burlington and stayed there for 8 years. Jim went to Aldershot High School during that time. But everything changed when money ran out. They lost their home. They lost their security. For a while, the Carreys were living out of a Volkswagen van. Teenage Jim and his brother John even camped out in a tent at Charles Daly Park, along the shore of Lake Ontario. It was survival, not childhood. The kind of hard living that doesn't show up in celebrity profiles, but shaped everything he later became. Eventually, things started to turn around. Barely. His father found work in the accounting department of Titan Wheels, a tire factory in Scarborough. That meant they could live in a small house across the street from the plant. But there was a catch. In exchange for staying there, the whole family had to pitch in. Jim and John worked 8-hour shifts as janitors and security guards, starting at 6 p.m. and going straight into the morning. Teenagers by age, but adults by necessity. Back in Scarborough, Jim tried to keep up with school. He enrolled at Agincourt Collegiate Institute, but it didn't last. On his 16th birthday, he dropped out completely. Not because he didn't care, but because the bills wouldn't pay themselves. He took his chances downtown, performing stand-up in Toronto clubs whenever he could. Jokes by night, cleaning floors by day. It was a grind, but one he believed in. Years later, reflecting on those early struggles in an interview with the Hamilton Spectator, Jim said he always felt like there was a backup plan waiting for him if comedy didn't work out. He figured he'd end up working in Hamilton, Ontario, at the Dofasco Steel Mill. As a young man, he would look across Burlington Bay at those towering steel mills and imagine the future. To him, that was where the great jobs were. But fate had other plans. Jim Carrey's incredible career. Carrey's first stand-up comedy experience took place in 1977 at the age of 15. His father helped him put together a short stage act and drove him into downtown Toronto to perform at Yuck Yucks, a new comedy club in a community center basement. That night, he wore a polyester suit his mother chose, saying, "That's how they dress on the Dean Martin Celebrity Roast." Unfortunately, the act fell flat. His polite impersonations didn't fit with the rough, edgy crowd. Club owner Mark Breslin later recalled it as "bad rich little," and Jim started to doubt whether comedy could ever be his path. At the time, the family was struggling. They had lost their home and, at one point, lived in a van while Jim and his brother camped at a park near Lake Ontario. Supporting Jim's comedy dreams felt impossible because money was tight. Things slowly improved when Jim's father found a job at a tire factory in Scarborough. In exchange for living in a small house near the plant, teenage Jim and his brother worked night shifts as janitors and security guards. His school days gave way to shifts from 6 p.m. to dawn, but he kept performing in clubs when he could. In 1979, with a little more stability, Jim returned to stand-up with a sharper act. He earned his first paid gig, $20 Canadian for a 20-minute set at the Hay Loft in Scarborough. That led him back to Yuck Yucks, this time at its new Bay Street location in Yorkville. His persistence paid off, and he quickly went from open mic slots to regular paid shows. People began to take notice. At about the same time, he tried out for Saturday Night Live in 1980. The executive producer chose someone else, which was another setback. But Jim kept at it, taking a small voice acting job on a local overnight TV show and continuing to perform hot and cold tours in and around Toronto. A turning point came in early 1981. Performed badly at a rock concert in Barrie, he was heckled off stage. But 2 weeks later, the Toronto Star printed a rave review of his Yuck Yucks set, complete with a picture of him mid-impression as Sammy Davis Jr. That kind of front-page praise launched him into the spotlight. On TV that April, he appeared on An Evening at the Improv. That summer, he starred in Introducing Janet, a made-for-TV movie on CBC, where he played a struggling impressionist comic. Over 1 million Canadians watched it. It cemented his status and earned him the nickname Rubberface for the VHS release. While touring North America, opening for comedian Rodney Dangerfield, Jim drew interest from The Tonight Show. By December 1981, he was waiting on a U.S. work permit, and calls reportedly came in to book him on Johnny Carson's show. With or without TV bookings, Jim's confidence grew. In early 1983, he moved to Hollywood. He performed at the Comedy Store and landed a role in NBC's sitcom The Duck Factory. He finally appeared on The Tonight Show that Thanksgiving, doing rapid-fire impressions: Elvis, Kermit the Frog, Clint Eastwood, and got an approving signal from Carson, though he wasn't invited to sit on the couch. The sitcom didn't last long. It aired in early 1984 and was canceled. Still, Jim wasn't discouraged. He took a hosting job, appeared on Late Night with David Letterman, and movie offers started rolling in. One role in Once Bitten hit the screens in 1985, and was a moderate box office success. He also shot scenes for Peggy Sue Got Married, directed by Francis Ford Coppola. Struggling to join Saturday Night Live, Jim tried again in 1985 under new leadership, but once again didn't make it. Producers didn't even let him audition. By then, though, he was already carving his niche. He began dropping celebrity impressions and shifting toward observational and character comedy, risking the expectations of audiences used to the old routine. The gamble paid off. From 1990 to 1994, Jim was part of In Living Color. His wild characters and physical energy stood out. Viewers took notice, and soon, Hollywood followed. In 1994, everything changed when Ace Ventura: Pet Detective hit theaters, making $72 million in North America. Jim's style clicked instantly. Morgan Creek offered him $5 million to reprise Ace in a sequel. New Line and other studios came calling with big checks: $7 million for The Mask and $7 million again for Dumb and Dumber. Those films crushed it at the box office: $351 million worldwide for The Mask and more than $270 million for Dumb and Dumber. Suddenly, Jim Carrey was a bankable global star. He earned his first Golden Globe nomination and ranked second after Tom Hanks on the Quigley chart of top money-making stars. In 1995, he played the Riddler in Batman Forever, bringing his manic energy to a blockbuster hit. The same year, Ace Ventura: When Nature Calls smashed opening records, earning $212 million worldwide with a $40 million debut weekend. Carrey pushed boundaries again in 1996 with The Cable Guy. Paid a record $20 million, he played a lonely, obsessive cable installer. A darker, weirder role than audiences expected. Critics were mixed, but the movie still grossed over $100 million worldwide. Yet Carrey wasn't done evolving. In 1997, he starred in Liar Liar as a lawyer, forced to tell the truth for 24 hours. Critics called it wildly funnier than the material should have been. He earned another Golden Globe. In 1998, he accepted a pay cut to lead The Truman Show, a satirical drama about a man whose life is secretly a TV show. Critics loved it. Audiences were drawn in. He won a Golden Globe for Best Actor in a Drama. Despite being widely expected to land an Oscar nomination, it never came. But the film still grossed $264 million and proved Carrey had depth. By the end of the decade, Jim Carrey had gone from a kid performing in tents and factories to international success. He was a star whose face could melt, whose body could bend, and whose talent had reinvented comedy. Against every odds and rejection, he built himself into more than just a funny guy. He became a legend, all his own. Jim Carrey's love life. Jim Carrey is best known for his wild facial expressions and blockbuster comedy hits. But when it comes to love, his story is anything but funny. Behind the scenes of his legendary career lies a complicated web of relationships, heartbreaks, and drama that reads like a Hollywood movie in itself. From short-lived marriages to emotional breakups and even tragedy, Carrey's love life has been full of twists and turns. He may have made millions laugh, but in matters of the heart, it hasn't always been a smooth ride. Long before he became a household name, Carrey fell head over heels for actress and waitress Melissa Weimer. They tied the knot in 1987, back when Carrey was still struggling. Out of all his relationships, this one lasted 7 whole years. Together, they welcomed a daughter, Jane, who's now all grown up and has occasionally stepped into the spotlight herself. Jim rarely speaks about Melissa these days, but it's believed they've kept things friendly over the years. No drama, just an understanding between two people who once shared a life. Things took a turn when Carrey met actress Lauren Holly on the set of Dumb and Dumber. At the time, the chemistry between them was undeniable. The laughs spilled over from the script to real life, and by 1996, they were exchanging vows. But just as quickly as it started, the marriage came crashing down. 8 months after saying, "I do," they walked away from each other. No major scandal, just a fast burnout between two big personalities who probably moved too fast. But Carrey's romantic history goes even further back. In 1983, before Ace Ventura or The Mask, he dated none other than Linda Ronstadt. She was already a huge music star at the time, while Jim was a 21-year-old comedian trying to break into the business. They met at a comedy club where Carrey had been performing, and what started as a business meeting turned into a full-blown romance. For 8 months, they were an unlikely but fascinating pair. With Linda being 36 and Jim just 21, the age gap raised eyebrows. But it didn't stop them. Jim met Renee in 1999 on the set of Me, Myself, and Irene, and from the very beginning, their bond was strong. They became inseparable almost overnight, appearing together at red carpets and events, looking very much like Hollywood's next power couple. For a time, it even seemed like an engagement was on the horizon. But somewhere along the way, things fell apart. Renee walked away, and it left a mark on Carrey that he didn't hide. Many fans believe she was the one who truly broke his heart. After that emotional chapter, Carrey stepped into a long-term relationship with actress and model Jenny McCarthy. The two were together for 5 years, long by Hollywood standards, and they shared a very public love. But even with all that time together, something just didn't click. It became clear they were simply not right for each other. According to Jenny, Jim's depression had nothing to do with the breakup. She made that clear. Whatever their issues were, they kept most of the details private. Still, over the years, both have spoken kindly about one another in interviews. They've shown nothing but mutual respect, leaving fans to believe that even though the romance didn't last, the love didn't end on bad terms. Then came Anastasia Vitkina. Not long after things ended with Jenny, Carrey was spotted getting cozy with the young Russian student. They were first seen together at a Guns N' Roses concert in December 2011. And for a brief moment, their romance became the talk of the tabloids. Some fans even suspected that there was a bit of an overlap between his time with McCarthy and his time with Vitkina, though nothing was ever confirmed. Whatever it was, it didn't last long. Their relationship fizzled out almost as quickly as it began. But the relationship that cast the darkest shadow over Carrey's love life was with Irish makeup artist Catriona White. They met in 2012, and their connection was intense from the start. For 3 years, they were on and off in a romance that was as passionate as it was volatile. But things took a tragic turn on September 28, 2015. Catriona took her own life, and the news shocked everyone. She left a letter behind, and in it, she directly addressed Carrey. She accused him of introducing her to coke, escorts, and emotional abuse. She also claimed he had exposed her to disease. The aftermath was brutal. Rumors flew that Carrey may have provided the medication she used to end her life, but that was later denied. Still, the legal battles didn't stop. Catriona's family took him to court, and for years he found himself entangled in a storm of lawsuits, pain, and media attention. It was a dark chapter that still lingers till today. While many details remain private, it's clear that this loss left a deep scar on Carrey's heart. From sweet beginnings to bitter ends, Carrey has seen it all. The Jim Carrey controversy. Jim Carrey was once one of the biggest stars, but over time, the shine faded. After a wave of scandals, heartbreak, and not-so-great headlines, the funny man who once ruled the box office slowly stepped back from the public. His most controversial moment came in the 2010 DS. One of the most controversial moments that raised eyebrows came when Jim kissed 20-year-old Alicia Silverstone on stage at an award show. The footage from the event showed Jim grabbing her face and planting a kiss as she tried to pull away. Many later called it inappropriate. At the time, no one said much, but years later, social media users brought the moment back. One person pointed out that Jim had forced himself on a young woman in front of millions and faced zero consequences. Others called it assault and said he had no right to do that. But that wasn't the only controversy Jim has faced. In 2015, Jim began speaking out against vaccines on Twitter. He claimed that harmful chemicals in vaccines were causing problems in children and pointed to rising autism rates. The comments caused trouble online. Many slammed him for spreading misinformation, especially since there was no solid medical proof behind his claims. But it doesn't end there. Perhaps the biggest scandal of Jim Carrey's career came after the tragic death of his former girlfriend, Catriona White. The two had been in an on-and-off relationship since 2012. Then, in 2015, Catriona died from a prescription drug overdose. Her death was ruled a suicide. But things took a dramatic turn when her estranged husband, Mark Burton, filed a lawsuit against Jim. Mark claimed that Jim had caused emotional pain that contributed to Catriona's death. He also alleged that Jim had illegally obtained prescriptions under a fake name, Arthur King, and gave them to her. According to the Oxford Eagle, Mark's lawsuit painted Jim as reckless and dangerous. But Jim fired back. In a statement, he called the situation a terrible shame and said there are times in life when a person has to stand up for their honor. He added that he would not allow people to use the death of someone he loved to try to exploit him. He wished that people would stop using her tragedy for personal gain and let her rest in peace. Catriona's mother also filed a wrongful death lawsuit, but by 2018, both cases were dismissed. As all of this played out, Jim opened up more about his own mental health. In 2017, he told iMagazine that he no longer had depression, but for years he battled it. He explained that when dark feelings come now, they don't stay long enough to drown him anymore. He also said he had found peace, even in the painful moments of his past. But the controversies didn't stop. In 2022, Jim stirred more drama when he criticized Will Smith for slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars. He said he was sickened by the standing ovations that followed, calling Hollywood spineless. He believed that no one had the right to hit someone just for saying words. Social media didn't let that slide. Critics were quick to call Jim a hypocrite. They brought up the Alicia Silverstone kiss again and pointed out other questionable moments from his past. People began to see Jim not just as a fallen star, but as someone who had gotten away with too much for too long. Despite the backlash, Jim kept working, just at a slower pace. He appeared in films like Mr. Popper's Penguins, Kick-Ass 2, Dark Crimes, Dumb and Dumber 2, and the Sonic the Hedgehog series. He also tried new paths. He released a children's book, How Roland Rolls, and wrote a surreal semi-fictional memoir titled Memoirs and Misinformation, but none of it erased the shadows of the past. In 2022, while promoting Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Jim announced that he was thinking about retiring from acting. He said he probably was done and was being serious about it. He explained that unless a script came along that felt incredibly important, he would step away. He talked about loving his quiet life, his spiritual journey, and his painting. He also made a bold statement. He had had enough, he had done enough, and he was enough. Still, fans were thrilled when it was announced that Jim would return for Sonic the Hedgehog 3, which premieres later this month. During the promo run, he made a surprising confession. He said he came back because he needed the money. He joked that he had bought a lot of stuff and now needed the paycheck. When asked about his earlier retirement comments, he admitted that maybe he was exaggerating. He said he returned because the character he plays is a genius and joked that playing a genius was a bit of a stretch. Fans now wonder if Jim might come back again in a bigger way. He recently said he'd be open to playing the Grinch again in a sequel to How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which left fans hopeful that they haven't seen the last of him. And again, Jim made headlines again, but not for a controversy. This time for a major sale. After sitting on the market for more than a year, his lavish Los Angeles mansion finally sold for $19.8 million. That was $10 million less than the original asking price. But considering Jim had bought the estate for just $3.8 million in 1994, it was still a massive profit. The real reason Lorne Michaels divorced Jim Carrey. Back in 2008, Jim Carrey announced that he probably wasn't getting married again. After 2 failed marriages, first to actress and producer Melissa Woomer, and then to his Dumb and Dumber co-star Lauren Holly, he felt he had learned his lesson. The second one had stung more than people knew. Even though it only lasted a year, Holly once admitted that her life completely fell apart after they split. The 2 first crossed paths during a screen test for Carrey's 1994 hit Ace Ventura, Pet Detective. From the moment she walked in, something clicked. Carrey later confessed that meeting her felt oddly familiar, like he already knew her. For years, he had watched Holly play Julie Chandler on the ABC soap opera All My Children. Still, despite nailing the audition, she had to turn the role down. She had just starred alongside another loud-mouthed comedian, Andrew Dice Clay, in The Adventures of Ford Fairlane, and wasn't ready to sign up for another wild ride. Eventually, though, fate had other plans. Holly agreed to star in Dumb and Dumber, and not long after that, rumors started swirling. She remembered that time clearly, recalling how the tabloids couldn't stop speculating about them. Reports kept painting them as some flaky Hollywood couple that was constantly breaking up and getting back together. To make matters worse, she was branded a homewrecker. At the time, Carrey was still legally married to Wimmer and the public jumped to conclusions. But according to Holly, Carrey and Wimmer were completely separated when she came into the picture in 1995. Things escalated quickly after that. While on the set of Holly's film A Smile Like Yours, Carrey popped the question. The couple tied the knot on September 23, 1996, in a quiet, romantic ceremony on top of a mountain overlooking the Pacific Ocean. It was picture perfect. Or so it seemed. The marriage, by all accounts, was filled with love and laughter, but the outside world refused to give them peace. Paparazzi camped out in their yard and even hid beneath their tennis court just to get pictures of them inside their home. Holly later opened up about how overwhelming it became. They tried to make it work for 9 months, but the constant pressure took its toll. On July 29, 1997, she filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. Years later, Holly still spoke fondly of Carrey. In 2019, she told Closer that they stayed in touch, and that her memories of working with him were nothing but joyful. During their relationship, they had laughed non-stop. According to her, being around Carrey was like being surrounded by constant entertainment. Carrey also never spoke ill of Holly, but he made it clear that he was done with marriage. He believed that if someone had done it twice and it hadn't worked, they should probably stop trying. At that point, he was in a happy relationship with actress Jenny McCarthy. The two dated for 5 years before Us Weekly confirmed their split in April 2010. Looking back on her divorce, Holly admitted that it broke her. She revealed that during that period, no one seemed to have the real story. All she was going through was heartbreak. She described how their entire life had evolved around avoiding the paparazzi, doing everything they could just to protect their privacy. Today, she sees how much things have changed. She pointed out that fame used to chase you, but now many people chase it. She talked about the strange new world of celebrity, where some people become famous simply by seeking attention, not for talent or skill. To her, that shift felt odd. She admired stars who weren't part of that circus, people who were talented, focused, and didn't need to make a scene to stay relevant. As for Carrey, he seemed to be going through his own reckoning with fame. In a red carpet interview from 2017, he made headlines with a bizarre take on reality. He declared that there was no me, that there were just things happening. He added that the world didn't really belong to us, and in a twist, He called that good news. Later on, he explained what he had meant. Carrey believed he got famous so he could learn to let go of it. Fame was still happening, just not with him anymore. In other words, he had outgrown the spotlight. And maybe that was the truth for both of them. For a while, Carrey and Holly had been the talk of Hollywood, but after the lights dimmed and the cameras turned away, they were just two people trying to heal, rebuild, and move forward. Which Jim Carrey movie is still your favorite to this very day? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also click the next video shown on your screen. You will enjoy it.